on the table was the position of the board as well as the position of the shareholder.
Correct.
Is that right? Now, you had worked as the Director General of the Department of Public Enterprises and therefore would have been familiar with the role of the minister in that situation, as well as the relationship between the minister and the board and their respective roles. Is that not so?
Correct.
In terms of the situation which prevailed where you had been suspended, as I understand, by the board, whether you were reinstated or not, did the minister have a role to play on that issue, or was that supposed to be a decision of the board and the board only? Or must they consult the minister, or what is the position? Or is the position that the minister had the final say, as you understood the position?
There is a slight irregularity in as far as that is concerned. Typically, the board has a full mandate to take decisions in the interest of the company. That is, first and foremost, their primary fiduciary responsibility. Of course, to the extent that the matter involved the CEO of the company, it is reasonable to expect that the board would have consulted the minister, as it were. But that's not what they were saying. They were saying that the position that they are conveying to me is their position as well as the minister's position.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way they put it to me.
Yes. Do you view that as different from saying that position was their position as the board, as well as the position of the minister, which they obtained through consultation with her? Or was it him?
It was her.
Yeah.
It was her at the time.
Yes.
Well, recall I indicated that even in the negotiation at CCMA, in the conciliation, they had requested a postponement in order that they would consult, as they indicated, the shareholder, with regard to, what they could offer.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which again I found a bit odd. But of course, it was what it was, that the board felt it important at all times to involve the minister or to invoke the minister's name, as it were. That kept on arising at different points. So in the end, I just took it that it was the board and the minister united in a position to have me removed. Yeah.
And the appointment of the group CEO for Eskom, I guess it might be the same with Transnet and so on. For Eskom, the power to make that appointment, does it lie with the board, or does the board recommend and the minister or cabinet makes the appointment?
The power rests with the board.
The power lies with the board.
The power lies with the board.
Yes.
To make the appointment. That's what would normally happen across the board in the private sector, in the public sector, with the exception that in the public sector, because it's a state-owned company, the board would say to the shareholder, dear shareholder, we have conducted a search for a CEO. We have identified the following 3 names. Our preference is name X. We ask for your concurrence, as it were. And the minister would then take that through internal decision-making in government, which does involve cabinet.
Yes, okay. Uh, excuse me. So, in a case such as that of a suspension of a CEO, the power to settle that matter would lie with the board, but the board could consult the minister, the shareholder representative, as you
Yes.
understand the position.
Yes, I think the reasonable thing would be for the board to say to the minister, we have come to such and such a position for these reasons, as it were. We therefore want to make you aware, as it were. But the board, that is a decision of the board. That's how I would view it, Chairperson.
By the time you were appointed as Group CEO for Eskom, you had worked with Minister Lynn Brown for some time in the Department of Public Enterprises, isn't it? For about 2 years or a year and a half?
No, I worked with her because I think she came in 2014, yes,
Yes.
after the elections
Yeah.
of 2014. So I had overlapped with her for about 3 months. About 3 months.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, about 3 months.
Yes.
So prior to that, you didn't, the two of you didn't know much of each other?
We knew each other because she had been a government, a public representative, as it were, in the Western Cape.
Yes, but in terms of working and so on, you had not worked together?
No, no.
Yes.
So she would have been my boss, like previous ministers under whom I served. Yes.
Yes. So when she came to public enterprises, was the process which led to your appointment as Eskom already underway, or did it start after? It was underway.
It was underway. She found it in its advanced stage, as it were. Correct.
Yes. So she also didn't know you much in terms of work, what your abilities were, and so on.
Not extensively. Just in the overlap, in the 3 months overlap.
Yeah. She might have had some idea, but she might not have been able to speak authoritatively about how you were as DG. Or she might have been. What do you say?
No, she had gained an impression because she arrived.
Yes.
Almost in my hands, as it were. You know, I briefed her. I took her through the department and so on and so forth. And I can recall the day when she spoke about this kind of process, where she said to me that, you know, I'm busy bonding with you, and now you're going to be leaving.
Yes.
To which I said, well, Minister, you know, it's not a reflection on you. It's a process that had been underway.
Yes. And when you left the Department of Public Enterprises, had your contract as DG come to an end, or was it cut short so that you could go to Eskom?
It still had about a year. So normally 5 years. I'd served 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So I still had about a year.
So basically, well, she may have got an impression of how she was likely to work with you in the 3 months or so. But for all intents and purposes, all these people who took this position that being allowed to go back to your job was out of the question, didn't know you much in terms of work.
No, not at all. Absolutely not at all. As I indicated, some like Dr. Ben Ngubani had known me before. I had the dealings, professional dealings with him.
With him.
And in fact, I can also still recall him saying, "Oh, we're really excited to find, that you're here, and we're gonna work together." This was in December when they when they arrived.
When the new board arrived.
When the new report arrived,
Yes.
to say, we'll continue the good work.
Where had you worked with him?
So I was also a Director General of the Department of Trade and Industry.
Yes.
Prior to being Director General of Public Enterprises.
Yes.
At the time, he had been posted as an ambassador to Japan. I think it was Japan.
Yeah.
And so trade. So I was also responsible for trade promotion.
Yeah.
And he was doing a project that required the department's support.
Yes.
And it was a very important project. I supported him. And he was very pleased with that experience. And that created a bit of a relationship.
Yes.
Between him and I.
And how long did you have that interaction with him? A year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, the project was a couple of months. It was an expo.
Okay.
So which involved displays of South African goods. So it was a bit of a big, complex.
Yes. So
project.
Are you able to say that your impression is that during the time that you had cause to interact with him in regard to that project while you were at the Department of Trade and Industry, that he had a good impression of your abilities?
Absolutely.
Yes.
There was great goodwill, great respect, mutually between him and I.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Slager.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, Mr. Matona, there's a media article I would like to refer you to, just piggybacking on the questions the Chairperson has been asking you. It's a media article on page 321 of the bundle in front of you. 321, that's item 5.
Item 5, 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
You found it? Mr. Chair, we will mark that as exhibit U1314. U1314.
What's the page number?
Page 321.
321.
You're there, Mr. Matona?
Yes.
It's an article by Amar Bungani titled New Eskom CEO Matona is weak, say ex-colleagues. Now, there's a mixed reaction about your appointment. The article is dated 22 August 2014, but we need to see what the minister said about you, or is said to have said about you at the time. Turn the page to 322. The last two paragraphs. Do you see that one starting announcing Matona's appointment?
Yes.
Yes. I want to read that. Announcing Matona's appointment, Brown said that he would continue work he had started at the department. Mr. Matona has been closely involved in providing oversight to Eskom and the other state-owned companies in the department's portfolio for the past 3 years. In recent months, he has played a key role in the interdepartmental task team comprising of the Departments of Public Enterprises, Energy and National Treasury, which have been working with Eskom to formulate a solution to the immediate challenges facing Eskom. Now, if I read it, excluding the other paragraphs, it reads, in recent months, he has played a key role in the interdepartmental task team, which have been working with Eskom to formulate a solution to the immediate challenges facing Eskom. Were you aware of this at the time?
Yeah, I remember seeing this article at the time.
This is back on, way back on 22 August 2014.
Yeah, this was part of the media reaction to my appointment.
So at the time, the minister believed that you, having played a key role in the interdepartmental task team, which was working with Eskom, you could assist in the formulation of a solution to the immediate challenges facing Eskom.
Yes, and Chairperson, I had already alluded to this role which I'd played prior to going to Eskom, which resulted in a decision to allocate. I think this was the first support, call it bailout, from the state to Eskom on account of the financial challenges. So it was a company that I was familiar with some of the core challenges, as it were. So it was, Eskom was no stranger to a very large extent. Obviously, there were things I didn't know which I discovered when I got there. But in general terms, I knew the company, I knew the issues, and I think this is a correct. This would be an accurate reflection of the sentiment of the minister at the time. So when I saw these words, they resonated with the way I thought she perceived me. After all, if she didn't believe what she said here, she would not have taken forward the recommendation for my appointment to cabinet, as it were. So she took that to cabinet because, and I presume she had also consulted, politically, in terms of disappointment, as it were.
So, at the time, for your appointment as Group CEO of Eskom, Minister Lynn Brown had to take your name to the cabinet.
Correct.
And say to the cabinet, she was recommending that cabinet should approve your appointment.
Correct.
And which would mean she thought that you would be up to the job at Eskom.
Correct.
Yes. Now, between the time you started as Group CEO of Eskom, I think was it said on the 1st of October or November?
1st of October, correct.
1st of October. Between that time and the time when you were suspended on the 11th of March 2015, had the minister had occasion to express any reservations about you having been appointed, expressing any reservation to you, or had she complained about anything that she thought you were not able to do properly as Group CEO of Eskom?
Not at all. Not at all.
She had never.
She'd never done that, and because we had worked together before, there was, in a sense, an open line of,
Yes, yes.
of communication. I would typically, for example, where load shedding was to be instituted, I would call him
And
and
notify her.
say, Minister, please don't be surprised.
Yeah.
We have reached the stage where
Yeah.
we're now having to do this. So,
Yeah.
so the relationship was cordial.
Yes. So as far as you knew, you expected her to still hold the same view as she had held when she took your name to cabinet.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And the board itself, I know that we said it had hardly worked with you. Had it, prior to the 9th, expressed any concern about anything on your part? Prior to the 9th of March?
None whatsoever.
Yes.
Chairperson.
And
none
prior to the commencement of the meeting of the 11th of March, had the board or the chairperson or anybody ever expressed any dissatisfaction with your performance or reservations about your abilities?
None whatsoever.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
You may continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, Mr. Matona, let's carry on that line. If the board were to say, well, we suspended him because he was giving unreliable information to the war room, what would be your reaction to that?
That would be absolutely incorrect, as it were, and I know that is something which was put out there, as a justification for the suspension. But up to today, if you asked anybody, would you indicate what specific information inconsistency is attributable to Mr. Matona? I don't know. Nobody said, well, here you are. You said this on such and such a day, and you came back and said something else at a later stage. Nobody had done that, to a point where I ended up concluding that it's possible that they did not understand the information that was being submitted, and this it refers to the war room, the information that was being submitted to the war room. There was a lot of complexity, both in terms of the operations, which is the generation, and the finances of the company. They change on an ongoing basis, as it were. So the information naturally evolves and changes. And if you wanted information today, it would have to be as of the point where you require it. And it'll be different to the previous sort of iteration. I imagine that maybe this was what this inconsistent, unreliable information was about. But again, nobody said, well, here's the evidence. He said this today, and this is what he said the next day. So I don't buy that argument, as it were.
Well, there is another allegation by a member of the board. If you go to item 10.
What page is that?
Item 10.
Go to divider number 10.
Yes. We will submit it now on record. Chairperson.
Yes.
That is if you are there, Mr. Matona, that's on page.
When you speak too far away from the mic, I can't hear you.
That's on page
469.
469.
Yes.
On page 469, you will see it's an affidavit. Mm-hmm. It said a statement, but it is commissioned, of Ms. Venita Klein. For the purposes of identification, Mr. Chair, an admission into the record has,
Is that the statement that starts at 469 and goes up to 518?
it goes up to,
Or have I combined two statements?
the other one is an annexure to the first.
Oh, okay. So the first one goes up to 491.
Indeed, Chairperson.
Okay, that's the one that
Indeed.
you.
For record purposes, we have marked it Exhibit U 13.8. Now, Mr. Matona, you have...
One second, Mr. Slager.
Thank you, Chair.
I seem to have no pen here.
Oh.
I had 2 pens before lunch, and looks like I didn't come back with them. Thank you. You are asking that this statement starting at 469 be admitted as exhibit
U13,
U13.8.
U13.8. 0.8, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The statement by Vinette Klein, starting at page 469, is admitted and will be marked as exhibit U 13.8.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Matona, you've already indicated that, or testified that she was one of the board members.
Correct.
Now, if you go to page 482, just want to draw your attention to a paragraph or 2 paragraphs in her
482, correct?
482, it's actually her affidavit. So in on paragraph 45, she says, Mr. Matona referred his matter to the Labour Court, Johannesburg, for an order to set aside his suspension and allow him to return to work. This application was brought on an urgent basis and was opposed by Eskom. At the same time, Mr. Matona had lodged an unfair labor practice dispute with the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. The Labour Court found that there was no basis for urgency and dismissed the application in this regard. It nonetheless found in favour of Mr. Matona in respect of procedural fairness of the suspension and referred the matter to the CCMA for proper handling of the issues prior to it being heard at the Labour Court. Now, the paragraph I want your comment on follows. And she says, my reason for supporting...
I'm sorry, I missed the page number now, where you are reading.
Paragraph 56.
56. Okay.
The same page.
Yes, okay.
Then she says, my reason for supporting Mr. Matona's departure was that he did not appear to have a handle on the turnaround of the organization, which was particularly critical at that point in time. Dr. Ngubane met with him and discussed his possible departure from Eskom. An agreement was subsequently reached with Mr. Matona and he exited the services of Eskom. That first sentence, that in her view, she supported your departure because you did not appear to have a handle on the turnaround of the organization. Your reaction to that?
Well, if I had the opportunity to ask Ms. Lane, a question would be, on what basis?
On the factual basis of her statement.
What exactly?
Yes.
Exactly. She had basically only
it's a
had...
bold statement.
Sorry?
Because she makes a bold statement.
She makes a bold statement?
No motivation given for it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, so as I indicated, by the time we had a meeting of the 11th of March, which is the meeting that concluded with my suspension, that would probably have been at least about the second time or third time. So she would not have had any basis to form any substantive impression of the nature to warrant such a bold conclusion. That's what I would say.
But more importantly, I guess, is the question also, whether did she express that view to you?
Never.
The turnaround strategy that she is talking about, or she says you didn't appear to have a handle on the turnaround of the organization. Now, how the organization would be turned around, was that set out in some document that you found in existence when you joined Eskom, or would there have been a document that you put together to say this is how we'll handle the turnaround?
We had, in fact, as I have indicated, since I had been at Eskom from October, in the 5 months, the main thing which had preoccupied probably entirely my time is a turnaround of the company. Work had been done prior to that. So this was not a question of starting from nothing. Work had been done, good ideas had been developed, good solutions had been developed that needed to be taken forward. So we took all of these, consolidated them with the benefit of the support of government through the war room, and had elaborated a turnaround strategy, which I presented to the board upon their arrival in their induction. And as I indicated, I spoke to the key issues of that turnaround in the meeting of the 11th in my report to the board. Now, let's say Ms. Klein did not agree or found any shortcomings in what I said. Nobody commented. Nobody said anything to the information I had submitted. So, you know, it's a bit disingenuous for her in this affidavit after the fact to make such a assertion as she's made here.
Was she part of the people at Eskom who would have had the opportunity of engaging with your proposed strategy, or turnaround strategy, or not?
Correct.
Yes.
So,
and had she participated actively in that process?
to my recollection, she had been there throughout all of the meetings of the board up to that point. She'd been there.
Yes.
So she would have heard me speak about the challenges of the company and what we propose to be done about them.
Yes. And she never raised any issues about there being anything wrong with your strategy or your ability to handle it?
Not at all.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Well, let's move on, but dealing with the aspect of your settlement negotiations with them. 2 board members have submitted affidavits to this commission, one of which is this one we're dealing with. And in the next page, page 483, paragraph 57, Ms. Klein carries on to say, with regards to Mr. Koko, I was present at a meeting with him. He was the one executive who was not interested in leaving the employ of Eskom. He indicated that he wanted his job back. Well, have that in mind. I want to take you to another affidavit, which is on page 542. That's item 12. Page 542. That's an affidavit of Dr. Ngubane. For the record, Chairperson, the affidavit is marked Exhibit U1311, and we ask that it be admitted into the record.
Is that the one for Dr. Ngubane?
Correct, Chairperson. Dated 4 August 2020.
U13?
U13.11.
Okay. And the affidavit of Dr. Baldwin Ngubane will be admitted and marked as Exhibit U13.11.
Thank you, Chairperson. Are you there, Mr. Matona?
Yes.
I also want to refer you to a paragraph in Dr. Ngubane's affidavit on page 555.
Yes.
Paragraph 4.28. I'm going to read 428 and 429. It says, whilst the inquiry was pending, Mr. Matona had filed a labor dispute with the CCMA against Eskom. Following the conclusion of the inquiry, Mr. Matona negotiated and settled the dispute out of court and left Eskom. This process was handled by the P&G committee. I was not involved with it. Then the next paragraph, he says, prior to that, I have been tasked by the board to attend the CCMA proceedings which Mr. Matona had instituted against Eskom. During one of my interactions with Mr. Matona at the CCMA, I suggested to him at my own initiative that he should consider returning to his position. However, Mr. Matona was too upset with the whole saga and made it clear to me that he would not return to Eskom. Your reaction to paragraph 4.2.9, Mr. Matona?
No, that's not true.
For ease of reference, let me take it point by point. So you have already testified that Mr. Ngubane, Dr. Ngubane, I beg your pardon, was one of the officials who represented Eskom at the CCMA.
Correct.
Now, he says during his interactions with you, he requested that you consider returning to your position.
No, I deny that. There's no such a thing. He never did. Remember, he was the one who had requested a postponement on the basis that he needed to consult with the shareholder minister, which postponement was granted. So I never had any such conversation with Dr. Ngubane. I deny this.
Well, that's him suggesting to you that you should consider returning to your position.
If you may, advocate, I mean, this, Chairperson, this sounds irrational. Here is a board that has, in which Mr. Dr. Ngubane was a member, takes a decision which, to my knowledge, was a unanimous decision. I have no record of him having dissented to the decision to suspend me. And then a few weeks down the line, a matter of weeks, he's changed his position. He's of the view that I should go back to my work. It doesn't make sense. So there can't be any basis to such a claim.
Well, I thought as you testified, you did say that you had taken your dispute to the Labour Court and to the CCMA for the relief you have stated this morning,
Exactly.
which was to get your job back.
Exactly. Exactly.
Why are you able to say whether, in making the statement, Dr. Ngubane must be mistaken if he thought he ever expressed that view to you, namely you should consider going back? Or do you think that he knows that the statement is not true, but nevertheless made it? Or are you not able to say?
I'm unable to say, Chairperson, the basis upon which Mr. Dr. Ngubane, has made a claim that he suggested to me. I would definitely have remembered. I would definitely have remembered if he had made such a suggestion. I would have grabbed it because at that point I was aggrieved. I needed my job back and my dignity restored.
Yes.
So I would have grabbed that opportunity. So there is no such a thing.
Because you had gone to court and CMA to precisely achieve that, get your job back. That's why you had engaged lawyers for whom you were going to pay out of your own pocket to get the job back. So if he had mentioned that maybe you should consider going back, you are likely to have been interested in that.
I would have, because for a start, it would have probably suggested a change of heart on the part of the board, and probably suggested that maybe they made a mistake, so maybe I could work with them. So I would have gone. The only reason that I decided to move on was because I realized that I was never going to work well with this board. I was never going to get the necessary support that a CE requires from a board that had taken the sort of action that the Eskom board did.
Thank you, Chair. But could it be that, Mr. Matona, what you've just said is what he's saying in the last sentence of that paragraph, that Mr. Matona was too upset with the whole saga and made it clear to me that he would not return to Eskom. Now, remember that sentence presupposes that he made the suggestion which he said he did in the previous sentence.
Yeah, no, I can see this, that I was too upset. Yes, I was upset, but I wasn't too upset to even walk away from my job if I could get it back. Certainly not to that extent.
So I think, to go back to the chairperson's question earlier, what one is trying to determine from your testimony and what we see here, you have said to the chairperson, Mr. Romeo Khumalo said to you, there's no way of you going back. But we see this statement by one of the persons you have said, Dr. Ngubane, was present in your settlement discussions. He's saying, well, the suggestion was made by him for you to consider coming back. Now, we've got to be able, the chairperson has got to be able to say, you either have no recollection of him saying that, or that you know he didn't say that.
I know he didn't say that.
Well, did you say he was one of the Eskom representatives present when you were told going back to your job was out of the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
It's just that he oh well. Now, he says in the paragraph concerned that is 429, during one of my interactions with Mr. Matona at the CCMA, I suggested to him at my own initiative that he should consider returning to his position. So there was the first meeting, there was the second meeting. It was at the second meeting that you were told going back to your job was out of the question.
Correct.
So it can't be that one. It can't be that he said that it can't be that it would be that one, and it couldn't be the second one. So the question would be whether prior to the first meeting, maybe when the conciliation process was postponed at the CCMA, whether it might have been during that time.
No.
You say at no time did he ever say that?
At no stage whatsoever.
Yeah,
Chair.
okay.
Thank you. Let's go back to paragraph 4.28. Because in paragraph 4.28, he says, whilst the inquiry was pending, Mr. Matona had filed a labor dispute with the CCMA against Eskom. Following the conclusion of the inquiry, Mr. Matona negotiated and settled the dispute out of court and left Eskom. This process was handled by the P&G committee. I was not involved with it. Now, was he involved or not involved in the conclusion of your settlement with Eskom?
No, he was. He was. I distinctly remember at least two of those meetings outside of the CCMA where Dr. Ben Ngubane was present. Even though, as I indicated earlier, the person who was talking on behalf of Eskom was Mr. Romeo Khumalo, but it had been a delegation of Dr. Ngubane, Mr. Khumalo, and his claim. Those are the people that I had interactions with.
Well, we have a copy of your settlement agreement with Eskom on page 330. That's item 7 for your ease of reference. will start on page 331, Chairperson. It also has to be admitted. Chairperson, we've marked it Exhibit U 13-6.
Exhibit U 13
6.
6. The settlement agreement between Eskom Holdings SOC Limited and Mr. Tshediso Matona, appearing at page 331, is admitted and marked as Exhibit U 13.6.
Thank you, Chairperson. I should point out before going into what I need to show you, Mr. Matona, Chairperson, that the copy in the file is not a signed settlement agreement. However, there is a file prepared in the Commission which has the signed settlement agreement. I'm going to beg leave, Chairperson, to use that one.
Okay. But are they the same? Are they identical?
It's contained in a bundle that will be used during the course of the week.
Okay.
I will provide Mr. Matona with it to have a look at it
Okay.
and compare it with the one in his file. The
Yes.
signed one was belatedly received from Eskom,
Okay.
hence is not in his bundle. Mr. Matona, what has been handed up to you is also titled Settlement Agreement. It indicates that it's a settlement agreement between yourself and Eskom. What I was pointing out, the last page of the copy in your bundle is unsigned, but the one I've handed up to you is signed. Please have a look whether the signed document is the settlement agreement that you signed.
I'm sorry, Advocate. This is not the copy of my settlement agreement because it bears the name of Mr. Dan Marogani.
Missing. Oh, sorry, this one. It had an extra page which was incorrect.
Yeah.
I see why, Mr. Matona, sorry. The pages are back to back.
The pages are back to back? Okay,
Yes.
because I see this one still has the front page.
You go to the front page,
Okay, let's see. Okay,
where it's written settlement
All right,
agreement.
Okay. I see that. Yes, that's right. I think it's put together with Mr. Marogani's agreement.
Yeah, just follow the page numbering.
1 second. Is there a spit sanitizer that you could give to the witness so as and when he's given documents, he can
Thank you, Chair.
sanitize? Okay.
Yeah, I see a page, the signature page that has my signature, so this would be
Okay,
the copy, yeah.
just go. Let's start at the beginning, where the page, the covering page with settlement agreement on it. So that once you've looked at it, we can hand it up to the chairperson.
Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a mix-up, Chair.
The flagged one, Mr. Matona,
Yes,
the flagged one, put it aside, the flagged page.
yeah.
Page with a flag, put it aside.
I'm looking for the one I had previously did have on the cover my
Yes.
name,
Yes.
but I now have part of my agreement with my signature.
Chairperson, with your permission, may I ask the investigator to help him?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you see, this is then, and then this is then, and then what I have here also is not, yeah, this is not mine also, yeah. I'm missing the cover page. Yeah, I'm missing the cover page. I seem to have. Yeah. No, I think it's fine. I'm only missing the cover page.
Thank you, sir. So you have the settlement agreement page.
Yes.
And the next page is table of contents.
Yes.
And then you have, now I'm using the paginated page, not paginated, but printed page number, page 1. Page 1 at below the red pagination,
Okay.
whereby the parties agree as follows. 1, interpretation. The next page, you don't have that.
Interpretation correct, yes.
And is paragraph 1.2.3, written Mr. TJ Matona.
Yes.
1.2.3
Yes.
means Mr. Tshediso John Matona.
Yes.
Okay. Paragraph 1.2.6 reads the termination date
Yes.
means 31 May 2015.
Correct.
Then paragraph 2, recordal. It reads in paragraph 2.1, Mr. TJ Matona is employed by Eskom.
Yes.
You see that? Go to the next page. Should start with paragraph 2.2.
Yes.
The parties have mutually agreed to terminate this employment contract.
Yes.
You see that?
Correct.
So your name again appears at 3.1, for mutual agreement, Mr. Matona's employment.
Yes.
3.4, Mr. Matona agrees that upon termination of employment.
3.4.
3.4,
Yes.
yes. 3.5, also, Eskom will give to Mr. Matona on or before 15 June.
Yes.
Yes. The next page, paragraph 4.3. The next page,
Yes.
paragraph 4.4.
Yes.
The next page, it has clause 6, confidentiality,
Yes.
clause 7, statements,
Yes.
and it has your name again, Mr. T.J. Matona shall not make any written or oral statements.
Correct.
Then paragraph 8, breach, or clause 8. The next page, clause 9, non-variation.
Correct.
The next page, clause 10, notices and domicilia.
Correct.
And 10.1, each party chooses the address set out opposite its name below as its address.
Correct.
See that? Then the first address is Eskom, Megawatt Park.
Correct.
Then there's provision for your address, Mr. T.J. Matona. This one doesn't have your address. Does that one have your address?
No, this one too doesn't have an address.
Do you recall completing it by filling in your address?
I will not recall, but I signed it, so it's got my signature. So
Let's go to the next page. Clause 11. You have it?
yes.
It's general. And then you have clause 12, signature.
Correct.
Are you on the signature date?
Yes.
I mean the signature page.
Yes.
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
When was it signed?
When?
When? Date of signing.
Date. I have it signed on the 15th of May. That's the date that's reflected on it here.
You signed it on the 15th of May.
Yeah.
Which year?
Do we now know whether,
15th of May 2015.
do we now know whether the unsigned copy that I have is exactly the same as the signed settlement? I
Chairperson,
did not know that.
yes. Well, I know I've checked them,
Yeah,
but the intention is to rely on the signed copy,
yeah,
ultimately.
okay.
So what I will have to do for the chairperson is to have copies prepared of the signed document in order to replace the unsigned.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Matona, who signed the document on behalf of Eskom?
I did what?
Who signed the settlement agreement on behalf of Eskom?
On behalf of Eskom, it's Mr. Zitembe Khoza, acting chairman of the board.
Shall we hand up the document to the chairperson? Chairperson, may I beg leave to hand up?
You need a cover page for the
You need a cover page.
Is that the signed
this page.
copy?
This page is missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Page with my name outside. Yeah. You see, this has got my name outside, but then it's got, so this should be scratched out. In the spirit of it.
Where must this fit in?
We will mark it, chairperson. I think we've already identified it as U13.6.
The hose on the front page are on the wrong side, seems.
Yeah, that's,
Does somebody have a puncher so you can
yes.
punch it on the right side? Just the
Indeed.
one page. The right side will be the left side of the page.
Is the, I see. They'll provide us.
Okay, well, we can move on while somebody is sorting that
Indeed,
out.
sir. Thank you.
Once it's ready, we can attend to it.
Mr. Matona, you said you signed on the 15th of May, 2015.
Correct.
Would you know the investigation which Dr. Ngubane refers to in that paragraph we've read, whether it did take place?
I can't be sure for a fact because, as I indicated, I was supposed to have been also interviewed as part of the investigations, but I was never interviewed. I had no opportunity whatsoever to make any input. But I believe the investigation was undertaken and concluded. A report of the investigation was published by Eskom.
Well, the date 15 May 2015 is the date when you signed. It was publicized in the media. And I want to refer you to a media article. In April 2015, this is before you signed your settlement agreement. The media article had something to say or to report on what was said by Minister Len Brown. I'm going to hand it up. It's also contained in a separate bundle, but not in your bundle. It will be used in due course in the commission. Chairperson, I have 2 copies. I beg leave to hand up one to the chairperson. And to you, Mr. Matona.
Oh. Why?
Chairperson,
Okay, I just found something confusing, but I think I've found.
is the back-to-back.
Yeah. Okay.
If it's taken out of a file, it confuses.
Yeah. Okay.
If I may use the pagination at the top of the page, page 613, 614, and 615. 613, 614, and 615. Chairperson, we could also admit it as an exhibit in this bundle of U13, or we could keep it in U16.
I'm sorry, what is it again? It's an article.
It's a media article.
From what publication do we know?
It's from polity.org. So it's publicized on the website, Polity.
Oh, okay. So
it's not,
612, 613, 614, 615. You would like it to be admitted. It does start at 612. Is that where it starts? Or does it start at 612?
612
should be admitted.
Should be omitted, Chairperson.
So I'll draw a line
Draw a
across.
line on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
So it should start at 613.
613, 614, and 615.
Okay, and it's to be exhibit.
It will be exhibit U13.15.
The article titled Brown Moves to Stabilize Eskom Leadership with Appointment of Molefe as Acting CEO, dated 17th April 2015, and written by...
The date is 17 April 2015.
Yeah, written by Terence Creamer, Creamer Media Editor,
Yes.
is admitted and will be marked exhibit U13.15.
115. Thank you. Mr. Matona, you see that media article.
Correct.
Are you familiar with it? Had you seen it before?
No, I don't recall seeing this article. No.
Well, the headline reads, Brown moves to stabilize Eskom leadership with appointment of Molefe as acting CEO. Can you see that?
Yes.
And then there's a photo there of Minister Brown at the time. The catchphrase below that photo says, Minister Lynn Brown, in foreground, with Brown Molefe far left, and Deputy Minister Bulelani Magwanishe at the Eskom announcement. And on the right-hand side of the photo is written, Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown announced that Transnet's Brown Molefe had been seconded as acting CEO of Eskom with immediate effect. The article itself reads, Brown said the appointment formed part of the government's effort to stabilize the Eskom leadership, following the suspension of 4 senior executives, including CEO Tshediso Matona. Speaking at Megawatt Park on Friday, Brown indicated that although the suspensions of Matona and the other executives were due to be lifted in less than 3 months, she wanted Molefe to remain at Eskom for at least a year to oversee a turnaround process, as he had done at both Transnet and the Public Investment Corporation. May I pause there and ask you, by this time, you are still on suspension.
Correct.
By this time, your matter is still pending at the CCMA.
Correct.
Did you know that the minister had made this decision at the time?
I did eventually hear, because it was well publicized, that Mr. Brian Molefe had been seconded from, well, moved, I think, from Transnet to Eskom. So I knew that for a fact.
So this article we said was written on the 17th, it's dated 17th April 2015. Does the article say on what date this announcement by Minister Brown was made? Was it made on that date? Was it made on the previous day? Do we know?
It doesn't seem to indicate that, Chairperson.
Yes.
But you can make it out. The
Yeah.
article is dated the 17th.
Yeah.
It says, speaking at Megawatt on Friday.
Yes.
So we can check
you
when.
could-
You
work
would
it
have
out.
to check what day of the
Yeah.
week the 17th was. So probably it was a few days before the 17th. It was either the previous day or a few days before.
I'm told it was the same day. The 17th is a Friday
Was a Friday.
of
2015.
April, yes.
Oh,
The same day.
okay, okay. Okay, so yes, continue, Mr. Esler. So, looking at what is attributed to Minister Lynn Brown at the beginning of that article, namely speaking at Megawatt Park on Friday, Brown indicated that although the suspensions of Matona and the other executives were due to be lifted in less than 3 months, she wanted Molefe to remain at Eskom for at least a year to oversee a turnaround process, as he had done at both Transnet and the Public Investment Corporation. So, three candidates had been identified to replace Mr. Molefe at Transnet. That's something else. Later on, Brown stressed that she had no intention of unfairly discriminating against Matona, who was only appointed to the position in late 2014, but she needed the skills and experience that Molefe possessed immediately. I need that support now, she said, reporting that Molefe's secondment had been canvassed and endorsed by President Jacob Zuma, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the Eskom and Transnet boards. And then she did not discount Molefe and Matona working together for a period. But, so she says, according to the article, she also did not discount Molefe and Matona working together for a period. Quote, I would like Molefe for the full year to actually work in turning around Eskom. And if that means with Mr. Matona, beyond 3 months' time, we will find another title for him. Would you agree that it seems that if what is attributed to her is what she said, by this time, she was clear that if you were to continue at Eskom, they would have to find another title for you, but you would not be CEO.
I think it's implied.
implied.
It's implied by the
Statement.
by the statement, Chairperson.
Yes.
And if you link it back to the position
negotiations.
of, I can't go back to my
Yes.
position.
Yes.
Yeah. They all kind of tie up.
Yes. what is strange, however, is that, or rather what she seems to be saying or revealing is that she believed Mr. Molefe had certain skills and experience that she thought Eskom needed. And what is strange is, if that was the issue, why were you not approached to discuss the issue properly? Why were you suspended in circumstances where it's not clear exactly what you were suspended for, unless it was some illegitimate reason?
Absolutely, Chairperson, and it turns out that Mr. Brian Molefe is someone that I know very well.
Yeah.
Recall he was CEO of Transnet when I was Director General. Of course, we also go back, and so I know his abilities.
Yes.
And I would not fault him,
Yes.
as it were, for his suitability for the role.
Yes.
I think the question was the circumstances in which he was brought,
Yes.
as they impacted on me in particular.
Yes.
I think it was untidy,
Yes.
to say the least.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I can confirm that the 17th was a Friday in 2015.
Okay.
Definitely.
Now, these pages of this article, must they go to where those page numbers are supposed to go? 613.
But they will have to change when they come into this file, Chairperson.
Oh, okay.
So we will regularize.
So we put them separately so
We will
far.
regularize in due course.
Okay. Okay.
And then while we are at that, Chairperson,
What will be important then, if the page numbers that we have used, namely in talking about the articles 613 and so on,
yes,
if that's going to change, somebody will have to make sure that in the transcript where we say 613, they put the correct.
that's correct. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Chairperson. And I have a copy of the settlement agreement that is signed. This is single-sided, Chairperson, so it shouldn't pose the problem of the double-sided when it is outside of a file. So I beg leave to hand it up. Let Mr. Matona first look at it, and we will hand it up to the judge. Is that
Yes.
the correct?
Yes. This is now correct. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Should
Yes.
I hand it up?
Can I ask this, Mr. Matona, going back to the article at page 614, it says at the bottom, Brown also announced that the terms of reference of the so-called deep dive probe of Eskom's finances, maintenance protocols, diesel costs, and coal supply, and costs had been finalized by the board. The 4 executives were suspended in mid-March in order for the investigation to proceed on an unfettered basis. So this paragraph seems to suggest that it refers to the same inquiry that was contemplated at the meeting of the 11th of March,
Correct.
and that this inquiry had been completed by the 17th of April.
No, actually, on the contrary, Chairperson, it says that the terms of reference, only at that point, the terms of reference.
It's the terms of reference that had been
Yes.
finalized, not the inquiry.
Yeah. It appears that it hadn't started by.
Yes,
by
okay,
this.
no. That's why I was wondering how could have been finalized so quickly. Yeah, okay, all right.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Matona, there is you have provided the Commission with correspondence because talking of these terms of reference, you have provided the Commission with what you and your attorneys had addressed as a letter to Eskom. Can we look at that while we're dealing with the terms of reference to see what you sought from them, meaning from Eskom? That is on page 654, item 14, for your ease of reference. Item 1.4.
644, you said?
Page 654.
54. 654. Yeah.
You are there?
Yes.
Can you identify the document to the chairperson?
Yes, so this is the letter that was sent to Eskom by my attorneys in the legal challenge against my suspension.
So the document is on Cyril Thompson and Haysom letterhead, attorneys, dated 18 March 2015. So this is 7 days after your suspension, which was on 11 March.
Correct.
2015. The letter is addressed to Mr. Zola Tsotsi, Chairperson, Eskom Holdings. Yes, it reads, Dear Sir, Mr. Tshediso Matona suspension. We act on behalf of Mr. Tshediso Matona, who is employed as Chief Executive at Eskom, our client. Our client's suspension and the letter specifying the basis on which the suspension was effected refer. We advise as follows. Reasons for the suspension. It appears from the notice of suspension dated 11 March 2015 that our client has been suspended for the following purpose. Due to the nature of the proposed independent inquiry and the importance of it being free from any influence from leadership in the organization, pending the completion of an investigation into these matters, our client should be placed on suspension without any loss of benefits and pay. Apart from this purpose, no other reasons for this suspension have been provided. In particular, no allegations of misconduct on the part of our client have been made. In the circumstances, our client was suspended without a fair reason. Moreover, our client's suspension has caused him irreparable harm, aggravated no doubt by the unlawful and unfair manner in which the suspension had been effected. In addition, our client's suspension has been placed in the media with confusion as to the basis for the suspension, creating an atmosphere of wrongdoing when none exists. This has affected our client's personal and professional life and has caused him irreparable harm, and will continue to cause him further harm if it is not undone. We have no doubt that you are aware of the legal principles and the jurisprudence that govern suspensions, and in the circumstances will agree with us that Eskom has clearly not met the legal threshold for substantive fairness in relation to the suspension.
Do you want to go to the real issue you want to raise in relation to
Indeed,
that matter?
Chairperson, that pause was meant to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next page, Mr. Matona. Under the heading, the inquiry. Paragraph 4 says, without prejudice to our client's rights in relation to his suspension, and in light of your assertion that an independent inquiry will be conducted into the possibility that the power delivery may be compromised by either intentional or negligent conduct, please advise who will conduct the inquiry, what is the nature of the inquiry, is it an internal, external, professional, forensic, or other type of investigation? What are the terms of reference of that inquiry? What kind of process will the investigator or the investigation team undertake in order to conduct the inquiry? When will the inquiry commence, and when will it be concluded? Now, you specifically asked there for your attorneys on your behalf about what the terms of reference were of that inquiry. You see that in paragraph 4.3.
Correct.
Were you given the terms of reference?
No. The inquiry or purported inquiry itself, as I gathered at the time, got into a space of extreme uncertainty as to the terms of reference, when it was going to start, whether the investigator was properly appointed, the result of which it was delayed, as it were. And frankly, Chairperson, I lost any interest in that inquiry. It was neither here nor there for me, except, of course, that when it was concluded, it again confirmed that no particular wrongdoing had been found on my part.
Yeah. Well, there was a response to your attorney.
Apart from finding that there had been no particular wrongdoing on your part, did it say anything about your abilities as CEO?
No, not to my knowledge.
Yes, but you were able to read it. You know what is.
I actually was never finished a copy of the.
Yes.
In the end, because I had exited Eskom.
Yes. Did you find a copy in one or another in this age of technology or not?
I have not been able to establish that.
To find a copy.
Chairperson. I need to draw the chairperson's attention to the fact that there subsequently became a fair amount of controversy around the report. The report. Which version? You know, in the end, there were several versions.
Yes.
You know, some which appear to have been what's the word? Redacted.
Yeah.
Certain aspects of the report removed from it, as it were. There was controversy, which I'm sure the Commission might be interested to look at.
Yes.
What is important is that when it was released by Eskom into the media, one of the statements that had been made was that no wrongdoing had been found. And I had subsequently been contacted by the media to ask me how I felt about that.
Yes.
Yeah. And my position was that I had always been innocent right from the word go, so it didn't come as a surprise that nothing had been found against me.
Yes. So when they released it, this was made clear that no wrongdoing on your part had been found.
Correct.
And I guess if anything had been found, namely whether you were not, had not performed properly, that would have been said.
They would have said so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Mrs. Lane.
Thank you, Chairperson. For the record, Chairperson, we will ask that letter be admitted as Exhibit U13.9.
The letter from Chettle Thompson and Eskom Incorporated attorneys addressed to Mr. Zola Tsotsi, chairperson of Eskom Holdings Circle Limited, dated 18 March 2015, is admitted and will be marked as Exhibit U13.9.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Matona, back to this media article. We were busy with U13.15. I had read the bottom, the paragraph at the foot of the page, 614. Brown also announced that the terms of reference of the so-called deep dive probe of Eskom's finances, maintenance protocols, diesel costs and coal supply, and costs had been finalized by the board. Now, I've asked you whether, did you become aware at the time of this media report?
No, not at the time.
This is now on the 17th of April, 2015, the month after you had requested what the terms of reference were. Now, Minister Brown is said to have said they are finalized. Were you ever provided with a copy?
I was never provided with a copy.
The paragraph further reads, the 4 executives were suspended in mid-March in order for the investigation to proceed on an unfettered basis. You turn the page, you just flip the page over to page 615. It reads, the delay in finalizing the terms of reference had arisen as a result of former chairperson Zola Tsotsi, who resigned on March 31, having sought to draft the terms alone. He had also not followed correct procedure in appointing Nick Linnell to oversee the investigation. Now, I know that I've asked you about Mr. Nick Linnell. And now here it is alleged that a proper process wasn't followed in his appointment. Have you, or may I say, during your suspension, at the time immediately following your suspension, did you become aware of Mr. Nick Linnell?
No. Not at the time. I did, however, pick up this name because it featured in the media as the person who had been drafted in by Eskom to do various things linked to our suspension, linked to the inquiry. I eventually knew this, which is the point I was making to you, Chairperson, that there was a bit of controversy around this. But the interesting thing now that we're here is, as we can see, we were suspended for a purported inquiry whose terms of reference, whose scope, probably duration, a lot of things had not yet been decided about this inquiry, as you can see. So and yet the board saw it fit to suspend us. I find that curious. I couldn't help the opportunity to point that out, Chairperson.
Yes, you were suspended on the 11th of March, and on the 17th of April, that is just over a month later, Mr. Molefe was announced as seconded to Eskom. Yeah. Mr. Slege, how far are we from finishing? We've gone past 4 o'clock.
Let me, maybe 15 minutes, Chairperson,
Okay.
and we are done. Mr. Matona, then you, as you say, signed the settlement agreement and you left Eskom.
Correct.
Now, you talk about, in your affidavit, an occasion where you meet with the former President Jacob Zuma.
I'm sorry, before you get to that, because I suspect that might be the last topic.
Yes, Chair.
Can we go back to his settlement agreement? Have we put it in or is it separate?
Oh, yes.
Or we have not put it in? Have you got your settlement agreement there, Mr.
That's
Matona?
on page
I
330,
don't know if
item 7.
7. Is 7? 7.
Item 7.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes. I'm just having a look here.
Page 331.
I note that in clause 3.5.2 of the settlement agreement, we have not admitted the settlement agreement. I say I've not made any note.
Yes, it's...
Is it to be dealt with later?
No, the reason is we want this copy, Chairperson, to replace the unsigned one which is already in the file.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, 3.5.2. There, Eskom undertook to give you a favorable reference regarding your employment with Eskom and said they would not issue any other references to third parties without your consent and agreement regarding the contents thereof. That seems to suggest to me that they had no problem with any conduct on your part, and maybe also in regard to your performance. Is that how you understood that as well, or not necessarily?
No, precisely the point, Chairperson.
Yeah.
It says here that they would provide a favorable reference,
Yes.
which means that they will represent me
Favorably.
properly, as I should, in terms of my competence and my integrity.
Yes.
Because that, nothing had been found against me, as it were. This is what this clause, that's how I understood it. Of course, I've never had to request Eskom for any reference.
Yes. Yes. And 4.3 talks about some, I don't know whether it's pension benefits that you would have been entitled to if you had stayed on for a further 10 months or so. Is that right?
Correct.
Just talk through that clause and tell me what that benefit was about.
So I was caught up in a double jeopardy, where I left the employ of government, and in that sense kind of shortchanged my pension, but on the promise of a more rewarding role as
Yeah.
CEO of Eskom.
Yes.
Now that also had become almost upset, as it were. And so the minimum, in addition to the package that the 12-month package, was to make good the difference, call it a penalty, a pension penalty, which Eskom agreed to pay.
Yes.
To restore me to the position I would have been had I stayed, had I continued in my position as Director General.
Yes. So the settlement agreement was really was made on the basis that you had done nothing wrong, and in any event, before the settlement agreement, they had also said you had not done anything wrong.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Matona, if you go to page 342, the same. 342.
342,
Yes.
correct? I'm there.
Explain to the Chairperson what is that document. It seems to be an annexure to your settlement agreement.
Yes, so because the matter was the subject of public interest, media interest, I had also agreed that Eskom and myself will issue a media statement, which statement Eskom drafted, and I looked at it, and I was comfortable that the statement could go as crafted, and hence it's attached to the agreement.
So the document is marked Annexure A, official communication, and it reads Eskom and its Chief Executive, Mr. M.J. Matona. Is that yourself?
I think there's a typo on my initials, yeah. But the correct initials are follow. TJ.
Yeah.
TJ, I see. The third line has TJ. Have mutually agreed to part ways on an amicable basis. It is expressly noted that no misconduct is alleged by Eskom against Mr. TJ Matona. Mr. Matona believes that the agreement to separate is in the best interests of Eskom to allow the board to pursue its plans for the company under the current leadership. Having considered his contribution at Eskom and his vast professional and leadership experience, Eskom is of the view that Mr. Matona can still play a vital role for South Africa, whether within commercial business or the public service. Eskom thanks Mr. Matona for his contribution during his term at Eskom. So that's the end of the document. So it reiterates that no misconduct is alleged against you.
Correct.
Well, I see that last part which says Eskom is of the view that Mr. Matona can still play a vital role for South Africa, whether within commercial business or the public service. That seems to express a sentiment that was expressed also in the settlement agreement between the government and Mr. Piccoli when they settled his matter. You will recall that he was suspended in, I think, September 2008 before President Begi was recalled. And there was an inquiry and chaired by Dr. Chinwala, and it made certain findings concluded, finding that he had integrity. But I think, I can't remember whether it said he should be taken back. I think it may have said he should be taken back. Yeah, I think it said he should be taken back. But I think by the time it completed its work, I don't know whether President Beg was still there or whether it was President Motlanthe. He was not taken back. The report was sent to Parliament, and Parliament decided not to go along with the inquiry's outcome, that he should be taken back. And that was because, I think, of some concern about some security-related issues. I think about whether in seeking to prosecute certain people or somebody, he had failed to appreciate the security risk. And he then challenged that in court, the resolution of the National Assembly. And ultimately the matter was settled. But when it was settled, I think one of the clauses was that he was suitable to be appointed to any senior position within public service. And I think the settlement agreement that was concluded between President Zuma and Mr. Mkholisi Nxasana had a similar clause as well. I just make that observation. It's interesting. You might not be able to say anything, but if you want to say something, you may do so.
The only thing I can say, Chairperson, is that at a personal level, as well as at a public level, one can never fully know the extent of the damage that something like this does to one's reputation, as it were. And so to the extent that this commitment, which Eskom made freely of their own pollution, helps to ameliorate the situation, it is welcome. But at the end of the day, I think what matters is the fact that up to today, no one has found that I have done anything wrong that warranted that sort of action taken by the Eskom board against me.
Of course, what seems to be a common feature among all the three settlements that I've mentioned, namely your settlement with the government, Mr. Nxasana's government, settlement with the government, and Mr. Pikoli's settlement with the government, is that none of you appear to have been found to have committed any misconduct. Certainly with you, certainly with Mr. Nxasana, and I think certainly I think also with Mr. Pikoli, there was just something that was said about whether he had appreciated certain security risks in approaching certain matters the way he had approached. But all of these people appear to have been pushed out by government in circumstances where a lot of people would not be able to find what they had done wrong. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Sorry, Chair. I wanted to pursue something in your questioning. But, Mr. Matona, I was...
Your voice has gone down again, Mr.
Yeah.
Slega.
Mr. Matona, I was about to refer you, or to ask you about what you referred to as the meeting you had with the former President Jacob Zuma in your affidavit. And a quick way to deal with it is to refer you to the page number, which is on page 21 of your affidavit. Page 21. Now, if you may please, and be brief in your explanation to the chairperson, how that meeting came about.
So I have now settled with Eskom. I've moved on from that episode, contemplating my future. I get a call from the office of the then President Jacob Zuma, indicating that he would like to meet me. Now, I might also say that in the aftermath of the events at Eskom, I had requested to meet him. As part
You had to?
I had requested to meet the president.
Yes, okay, after you had exited Eskom.
Well,
Or before.
after my suspension.
Or
Yeah,
during your suspension.
Just to deal with that crisis
Yeah.
of my suspension, I had put out a request. I had not had a response. Eventually, I did not meet the president around that time. I got a call to say that he would like to meet me, which is about June or July. I can't be precise of the time, but I recall that it was after I had settled with Eskom, and in a sense, the matter had been laid to rest. I suppose you could say the matter had been laid to rest in that way. I got a call, and I subsequently went to see the president. I think a few days later. I had not been told what the purpose of the meeting was. I said to the lady, when she asked me, "Are you available?" I said to her, "Of course. If the president wants to meet me, I have to be available." And we had a meeting. It was just the two of us, as it were. He asked me how I was doing, and I indicated to him, well, that I was doing well, as well can be under the circumstances. I had been contemplating my future. I didn't have a job at the time. He went on to say to me that, what happened at Eskom, has got absolutely nothing to do with you. It's not a reflection upon you.
Just repeat that. What happened at Eskom?
In other words, my suspension from Eskom was not a reflection upon me. That's as far as the president was concerned. That's what he said to me. And that because I have worked with him over the years in government, from when he was the deputy president, I have had lots of interactions with him, so we knew each other personally. And he had said that, the events at Eskom was not a reflection upon me, and that he personally still held me in high regard, and that the whole of government still held me in high regard. I had served this government from day one, from 1994. Probably now the longest, one of the longest serving senior public servants, as it were. So I kind of appreciated where he was coming from. What he did say was that I got caught up in the middle of a spaghetti. Those are the words he used, Of course.
Did you understand what he meant by those words?
I didn't understand what he meant, and part of the reason is because I had waited, for him for quite a while, and he was rushing. There were other meetings prior to my appointment with him, and I got a sense that he was rushing. But we sat for about 20 minutes. I didn't understand what he meant. He kind of that you're caught up in a spaghetti. I knew there was a lot of turbulence at Eskom at the time. Operationally turbulence, load shedding, but certainly turbulence in terms of government. The board was at war with itself. At least the board that I found there. There was a lot of infighting within the board. So anyway, he then said to me, they would like me to come back to government, to come back to public service. They didn't want to lose, the government didn't want to lose me to public service, as it were. I think he just wanted to establish where my headspace was, and he said that he'd give me a call again at a later stage. So I left the meeting. We never got an opportunity to speak again over that conversation, as it were. That's the events that I've captured here.
Yes. So that's, according to your affidavit, that's around July 2015.
Correct.
And you say the president, and now I'm reading from your affidavit, page 22. Paragraph 54. It says the president further said, are you there? Are you there, Mr. Matona?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, the president further said, he and government still held me in high regard. He indicated that my exit from Eskom did not need to result in the loss of my expertise and services in the state. He encouraged me to consider returning to public service when an appropriate opportunity availed. And then you say you left the meeting. Paragraph 55, at the end of it, the last sentence says, he concluded by saying he would contact me again in the subsequent due course, but that did not happen. Paragraph 56, I did not have any discussions with the president as to his involvement in my suspension or the reasons behind the suspension, other than expressing my disappointment and disapproval in the manner in which I was treated pertaining to my suspension. May I ask you, Mr. Matona, did you suspect that the president knew about your suspension or had anything to do with it?
No, it's not something that I can say I suspected, but it was something that was in the media space. I think that the chairperson, Mr. Tsotsi, in one of the interviews he conducted at the time, did bring the name of the president into it. And as you recall, chairperson, even at the beginning of this inquiry, the name of the president had been raised. But as to the precise conspiracy, I could not have known. And it's something that I guess it's still out there. I mean, I know other people have testified about it, as it were. I personally, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. I'm asking that question because of what you said. The president said to you that your suspension at Eskom is not a reflection on your professional character or abilities. Why would he say that?
Why would he say that? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I thought that one thought I had was that the whole thing was very embarrassing. It was. I mean, everybody who looked at this thing, and I just imagined if I were an ordinary citizen viewing this thing as it unfolded, it really put government in a bad light. And a lot of politicians, ministers, said they were very embarrassed about this. So I took it that it was an expression of almost remorse at what had happened.
On whose
To the extent that him and I knew each other.
Remorse on his part.
Remorse on his part, yes. That's how I took. Here's the president that calls you to say all of these things. I didn't ask. I didn't even know what he was going to say when I met him. Only to find that that's what he said.
Yeah, an expression of remorse, however, would suggest that the person did something which he now appreciates is incorrect, and he shows remorse. You understand that to be...
In other words, he would be saying, he would be feeling sorry that you were suspended, or that he may have had a part in your suspension. Is that what you are talking about? Was that your feeling of what he was expressing?
No, I could sense a sense of remorse about the events, without any suggestion, any inkling that he could have had anything to do about it. At that stage, I didn't know that he had anything to do about it.
Without any suggestion that he was saying the suspension should not have happened.
Without, because what the advocate is saying is that it may be that he had a hand in it, and now that it happened in the manner he felt remorseful about it. I'm saying I can confirm the remorse. I don't know whether that reflected the basis of the remorse was the fact that he had been involved, because I never asked him, and the issue never arose. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Matona. Page 23, the last paragraph there. Page 23.
Yes.
Well, you do say in it just before that, I did not discuss with the President whether he had any hand in my suspension or the reasons therefore. 57 says, I had in the meantime been looking for a job, and around August 2015, I responded to an advertisement for the position of head secretariat in the National Planning Commission. I was interviewed by a panel of cabinet ministers and subsequently recommended for appointment to cabinet around September 2015 in accordance with the applicable process. Are you still in that position, head of secretariat?
Yes, I'm still in that position.
So your suspension is 11 March 2015. You separate with Eskom in May, 15 May 2015. And June, July, August, September, 4 months later, you were employed as the head of secretariat in the National Planning Commission.
Correct.
Is that correct? You say it's an appointment to cabinet.
It's an appointment that was approved by cabinet.
And this National Planning Commission, where is it located?
It's in the presidency.
Is it in the presidency?
Correct.
And so who was the president at the time?
It was President Zuma.
And do you work close with the president as the head of the secretariat?
Yes. The commission is an advisory body. It's a think tank and an advisory body
To the
that
president.
to the president.
So you got to meet with him again?
Well, probably once before he exited government.
Can you recall when did he exit?
Is it 2018?
2018.
I stand to be corrected. Time moves so quickly.
So that's 3 years later.
Yeah, when the president exited, isn't it 2018? 2018, I think.
Yeah, I can't recall offhand. Is that when he was recalled?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Chairperson, that concludes my questions to Mr. Matona.
Yes, thank you.
The rest of his evidence is contained in his affidavit.
Have you got him to confirm the transcript of the contents of the transcript when he was interviewed as true and correct? Has that been done? I think we must do it if it has
I
been
think
done.
we should do it now, Chair.
Yeah.
Then,
What we can do is whenever we have got such a transcript, it can be done at the beginning.
correct.
When the witness starts, so we don't forget about it.
Correct. Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Matona, that's item 16. It's on page 669. I think I showed you a copy this morning.
You showed me a copy, and part of the issues that needed to be corrected was in reference to Dr. Benny Ngubane.
Hang on, Mr. Slager. I see here,
Oh, I need to identify.
I think we should not confirm it now. I see it's got chairperson and registrar and so on. It could cause confusion that it was done here. So I think, firstly, it should be labeled not as a hearing, but rather as an interview.
Yes.
As an interview
Right.
of the witness by the relevant members of the legal team of the commission. And I think that then don't have chairperson in order to avoid confusion.
Yes.
Just have the name of whoever is speaking there
They have it right
later on.
later in the document.
Yes,
They
yes,
start at the bottom of the page, they don't pick it up.
yes. So I think also for registrar finds either the name of the person or
Correct.
some other title, just so that there'll be no confusion between a transcript from this hearing and a transcript of the interview.
Correct.
And then what you can do after those corrections have been made, and any other that Mr. Matona wished to make after all of those had been made, you could actually have an affidavit.
That's exactly what I
Yeah,
was
an
going to propose.
affidavit by
That.
him,
Yes.
to which the transcript will be attached as annexure.
Yes.
Which will say that the contents of the annexure are true
Correct.
and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief.
Correct.
Yeah, so let's not do it now,
Correct.
but you can do it that way.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, okay.
That's perfectly in order.
Yes. Counsel for Mr. Matona, is there any intention to re-examine? I thought there was, or there wasn't? There
It's an
wasn't.
attorney. It's an attorney, Chairperson. He may.
Oh,
I'll let him address you.
do you intend to re-examine? No, okay, all right. Mr. Matona, thank you very much for coming to give evidence to in the commission. We appreciate it. You are now excused.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Just a moment. May I address you shortly, just 2 minutes?
But Mr. Matona may be excused, yeah.
You can be excused.
You are excused?
Okay.
Well, you must just wait until
Thank you.
Mr. Selega has indicated if he's done.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we had scheduled a second witness for today, Mr. Nick Linnell, who is in Cape Town.
Yeah,
He had requested his testimony to be via a video link. However, he communicated with my junior this morning that he was indisposed. So he has a medical issue.
yeah,
Although he had indicated to us that he's prepared to testify with that condition, I had opportunity to speak with him on the phone and establish whether he was fine to proceed on that basis, in the condition he's in. My assessment was that we couldn't proceed with him on that, in the situation he finds himself.
yes. So we'll have to make another arrangement.
We will have to make another arrangement for him, Chairperson.
Yes. Okay, no, that's fine.
Other than that, tomorrow we proceed as scheduled.
Yes. Okay. Tomorrow we're planning to have one witness.
There's one witness.
Yeah. No,
We may
that's
have
fine.
a second witness.
Okay, I think if you can, don't line up the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could start maybe maybe we could start at 9:30.
Yes. 9:30.
Yeah, 9:30 tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah. That- Thank you, Chair.
There was counsel who wanted to address me. Yes, okay. But if it's brief and you are able to address me from where you are after putting on the switching on the,
I believe I can.
yes, okay.
I'll just ask to be seated. The chair is.
Yes, that's fine.
To be standing, the chair is horribly uncomfortable.
Yes, okay,
For
that's
purposes
fine.
of articulation.
Yes, that's fine.
Chair, I'm for Ms. Lynn Brown, and my presence here today is purely by chance. By schedule, I was here to listen to Babu Zola Tsotsi as per the Rule 33 invitation. Now, being here, I listened to the evidence of Babu
Mr. Matona, yeah.
Matona, and my client is mentioned. We have not been given that Rule 33 notice, and my client, I don't think, is even listening. Now, I don't have the script to follow the evidence with insight. It just put us in a bit of a difficult position on that score. I don't know how it came about, but we are where we are.
Oh,
At the back foot, as far as the evidence of Mr. Matona relates to my client, in particular in light of the disclosures that came through today.
yes. Mr. Selega?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, yes, indeed, some reference to Mrs. Lynn Brown has come up during the evidence of the witness. But that arose from the explanations and testimony given by the witness in the process of his testimony. I did indicate to my learned friend that I will notify him belatedly about a witness, but will give him time to prepare what he needs to do for his client. So although the notification is belated, the time for them to canvass whatever gets to be said will still apply.
Well, basically, to the extent that you might wish to make some or other application under the rules, the time periods would have to be computed from the time you receive them. You receive the notices. If you have not received 3 notices, you will get the time, I think it's 14 days, would have to be calculated from the time you receive them. But I think, but I think what you are saying is any reference to Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Lynn Brown, wasn't in the statement of the witness. It came from elaboration during the evidence.
It wasn't expressly in his statement.
It was not expressed, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You understand that?
I do, Chair, in fairness to my learned friend, he did indicate that he will give me notice, but I honestly did not believe it related to Mr. Matona's evidence for today. But I may just point out that there were at least 2 documents that could not have come out today. There was 2 press statements, one when Mr. Matona was appointed in August, and there was also reference to the one on 17 April. Those did not arise from the witness chair. Probably those arose during preparation, just in retort to the spontaneity of the mentioning of Ms. Brown.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I leave it to both of you to sort out how to address whatever dissatisfaction there may be outside of the forum? Is that right?
I'm happy to do that. I'm sure we will come to
Sort it out,
a workable agreement, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Indeed.
I think there was somebody else who indicated they wish to say
For
something.
Mr. Tsotsi.
Okay. They must sanitize first.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, Mr. Ngabesha.
Firstly, just to place on record that we, through my client, only received the statement of Mr. Matona this morning.
Oh,
And so, as at the time that the commission commenced with his testimony, we had not had opportunity to peruse it.
yeah.
And then
By the way, who do you represent?
Mr. Tsotsi,
Mr. Tsotsi, okay.
who I understand could possibly be your next witness tomorrow,
Yes.
hopefully after Mr. Linnell, whatever position is adopted in as far as his testimony is concerned.
Yes.
Whatever the case may be, we have come to conclude that Mr. Tsotsi could be considered, in terms of your rules, as an implicated person.
I'm sorry, just raise your voice, Mr. Ngabesha. You have come
We
to the
have come to
conclusion.
conclude that Mr. Tsotsi, in terms of your rules, could be interpreted to be an implicated person. Thus, we are seeking to apply to cross-examine him. And we think it would be fair, if at all possible, that that cross-examination occurs before Mr. Tsotsi is led in his evidence in chief.
I just want to make sure I understand properly. As I understand it, you may apply for leave to cross-examine, but you are not sure whether you will. Is that correct?
No,
Or you
we
will?
are certain. We
You
are
will
certain.
apply
Yeah.
for leave to cross-examine who?
Mr. Matona.
Mr. Matona?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. And
as
then you
a-
made another point.
I was simply sketching the background, Chairperson, that we were not privy to the document, which is the
okay.
affidavit.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would have
Applied before.
made the application formally ahead
Yes.
of my submission
Oh,
now.
yes,
Now, noticing that Mr. Matona is being recused,
Yeah,
and my client is likely to take the stand
as soon as possible.
as soon as possible,
Yes.
we thought we must bring it to the attention of the
Yes.
chairperson.
Yes.
In the break, lunch break, I had mentioned earlier
Yes.
to Mr. Sileke
Selega, yes.
that once we have made that conclusion, we'll alert him, which we did.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
beg your leave. If there
Yeah.
is a procedure to follow, we'll follow it. But the
Yes.
timing might necessitate that we bring
Yes.
it at this point, and if it pleases you, then proper arrangements can be made that maybe tomorrow we start with that cross-examination.
The application for leave to cross-examine Mr. Matona, that will be lodged in due course, is that right?
I need your guidance, Chairperson. There's
Yeah.
an issue of timing.
Yes. Well, you can, I think in terms of the rules, you should apply within 14 days from the date you receive a Rule 33 notice. You
Which,
may apply within 14 days.
agreed,
Yes.
which in as far as Mr. Matona's evidence, we did not receive.
Yes, yes, yes. But arrangements, if the application is granted, arrangements can be made for Mr. Matona to come back.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We just thought we must place this on
Yes,
record.
okay, no, that's fine. Okay.
May I be excused?
Yes, okay, no, that's fine. I think there's nobody else who wanted to say something. We are going to adjourn then for the day, and tomorrow we'll hear the evidence of Mr. Tsotsi
Correct, Chair.
at 9:30. We'll start at 9:30. We adjourn.
Thank you, Chairperson.